Hello and welcome to the Focusing Way podcast. I'm your host, David Battistella. Focusing practice is explored in many ways. I myself have put it to the test in every aspect of my life, time and time again. One might think that going inside is more of a spiritual or emotional practice, but one thing to remember about focusing is that it is a body practice. It's all about going within, seeking answers, and a sense of rightness that flows from within you. Focusing is a body practice. It's not meditation. We are looking for places in our body where emotional stuckness presents itself. Once we tune in, we can discover the multitude of ways our body communicates through sensations, images, and feelings throughout the body. These places tend to present themselves from the area around the throat, and I invite you to check in on that right now. Or the heart space, or the stomach, or the whole center of us. Of course, things can present in the head as a headache, the neck as neck pain, back pain, cramps, muscle soreness. It's all part of how the body talks to us. But what do? How do we focus around physical pain, the kind we might experience after major injury or surgery? What role can focusing play in the moments before, during, and after an event like this in our lives? Early on in my focusing life, I had injured my calf muscle playing squash. At the time, I thought I had been hit in the back of the leg by the racket of my squash partner. I was convinced that he had cracked the back of my calf with the snap of a bamboo rod. That, my friends, was pain. A shooting pain I'd never really felt before that moment. Thankfully, the injury did not require surgery, but it did give me the opportunity to examine the pain that was there. I did not do this in an abstract way. I used focusing techniques to get inside that injury, to be with it, to talk with it in some way, and understand some important things. One memory is something around putting your best foot forward. Another is about pushing too hard. The important thing is that through this focusing, I gained a bodily understanding of what happened, and I could take this knowledge and focusing into the healing process. I learned something more about myself, about the before and after, and about a new way of self-healing that took into account the whole. Of course, I saw doctors, homeopaths, and other experts, but I included my focusing in this healing as well. Since that time, I've applied this focusing to various scenarios, from minor headaches to flus, colds, and dental visits. Some of you might remember recent podcasts with Barbara Dickinson. I learned that Barbara was going to be having hip replacement surgery. In our conversations, I shared some ways I had used focusing around physical pain. She also agreed that after the surgery, she would share the many different ways she used focusing before, during, and after her surgery. So please sit back and enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Barbara Dickinson. And I'm back with Barbara Dickinson, and we ended our last episode talking about pain and the way pain can sort of get into your mind a little bit, and that dialogue, the internal dialogue that happens around physical pain. And just to sort of pick it up where we left off, maybe you could just talk to me a little bit about whether when those pain moments came after surgery, were you able to just sit with the pain, to be with it? And what was that experience for you?
So, by way of introduction, I was 50 years old. 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 I was 50 years o I have to mention what I learned about pain from a focusing perspective from Ann Weiser Cornell. She teaches that there are two parts to pain. The sensation itself, which of course we can explore in a focusing way. I think it's correct to say that's a felt sense. And then there's the part of me that doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can have many different descriptions, how I don't like it. So yes, I sat with pain a lot. And the thing that made my pain management, as the doctors like to call it, so successful was that I was able to ask the body part where the pain was located, what did it want? And I did that a lot. I did it with not only pain, but the other most prevalent physical sensation in this post-process has been itching, irritation. It's a common side effect of the narcotics, but it's also a common healing sensation. And special for me, I turn out to be overly sensitive to some of the adhesives that they use in bandages and surgical glues. So for me, pain and itching were the same thing. They were upsetting. They were physically unpleasant sensations. There's a part of me that hates both of them pretty much equally. And I think I have to say I was lucky that none of the pain ever reached the debilitating level. So when we talk about focusing with pain, we really have to respect people who are in long-term, chronic, strong pain on the pain scale 7 and above.
Yeah.
I never went above a 7, maybe an 8, which of course is very subjective, but for me, I never went above that level. So I didn't have what I considered chronic, debilitating pain. I had episodic pain, episodic itching, that reached the level of distracting me, more than distracting me, upsetting me. But I knew that I had tools. I had the tools here in the house, and I could manage it. So with pain, I would sit, I would close my eyes, I would be with the pain, I would put my attention in that area, and it wasn't just my hip. One of the things about hip surgeries that people who haven't been through it may not know is that they twist your knee, they can twist your foot, they can do things to you. I mean, I have bruises in places that shouldn't have bruises that I'm sure got banged in the process of hip replacement surgery, which is kind of gymnastic. The positions they have to put your legs in to get that prosthesis in, or I've seen them once, I don't ever want to see them again.
Okay.
So there was one day when my knee hurt even more than my hip hurt. And so sitting with that body part and putting my attention on the pain, and at the same time, we focusers multitask because we can monitor 2 parts at the same time.
Right.
We attend to 2 parts. So there was a part that was really upset that my knee hurt. It kept saying, but you had your hip operated on. And I kept saying, yes, I know, but they did twist my knee, so that's why it hurts. And my tools were ice, heat, rest, change of position, medication, and I also had some milder topical things I could do, but I would sort of hold that inventory and I would ask the body part, what do you need?
Yeah.
And I got a lot of answers for ice. Get up, get the ice pack, sit back down, I'm good to go. When I went to sleep at night for about the first week, I would say, but I was very careful to monitor it. I took one narcotic pain medication at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, it doesn't matter if I'm in pain. It matters that I sleep.
Right.
And that, I think, was one of the reasons why I didn't have such tremendous pain, because I automatically took that pain medication at night.
Mm-hmm.
Got a reasonable night's sleep. When my hip hurt, sometimes it hurt and itched at the same time, and that was tough. But the first time the itching started, it was the narcotics, and I knew I could take the medication called Benadryl. It's an allergy medication. It's compatible with everything else. And I took it carefully and regularly and got through that part. And when I say itch, I don't mean like just, oh, my arm itches, let me scratch it. This kind of itching, if you're not familiar with it, goes in deep. You can't do anything topical to relieve it. It's
right.
more than annoying. It can drive you into a real state of distraction and irritability. So you kind of have to do something about it. But there's one story I wanted to tell you that was such a focusing moment. They tell you when you have a hip replacement, be sure to wear loose, comfortable clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, right? You want to be able to move around freely. And I was having trouble with my hip. It was giving me a lot of these signals, some pain, but more it was just healing itself and itching like crazy. So I sat there one day in kind of desperation. I've taken the Benadryl, but it's only taking the edge off. What do I do? And I said to my hip, what is it you need? Maybe not my best version of presents. I was kind of desperate.
Right.
And my hip said, get rid of the damn loose clothing and find something tight. And I went, what? It was almost like somebody was sitting there next to me talking to me. It was so clear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turned out over the next several days that part of my body needed to be bound up in something more like leggings or tights or something that kept everything contained than to have, because what the loose clothing was doing was rubbing against it. Just
right.
Almost like when somebody takes a feather and puts it under your nose and won't stop, and you're ready to just hit them away because they won't stop.
Right.
It was that kind of a sensation, and my body just told me, clear as day, go get those pants and wear them instead of the loose clothing. And I don't think I would have gotten to that without focusing, honestly.
That was you sitting right beside your deep knowing and listening. That's funny. No, when you talk about things moving around and auxiliary effects and all of that, I had this similar experience because my healing has been, over the better part of this year. It's continuing, and what I found was, because of the place where my surgery was, which was in my sort of left jaw, very close to the place where three nerves branch out off, your facial nerves. Like there's three nerves that come off the jaw there. One goes to your chin, and one goes to your cheek, and one goes to behind your eye. And at different times in the first couple of months, I was getting sort of headaches. And I also thought I had vision problems. Like I felt like I couldn't see very well out of one of my eyes. So I went to have my eyes checked. I've had 20/20 vision forever. I've never worn glasses. And I went to have my eyes checked, and he, looked at my eyes and did the eye test and said, no, your eyes are in great shape. You've got no vision issues. And he says, could it be something else? I said, well, I don't know. I had this surgery like 2.5 months ago. And he goes, what surgery? And I said, I had a wisdom tooth taken out of my jaw, and I showed him. I had some X-rays and some stuff, and he's like, those are your three facial nerves. Like that is that that whatever After I'd explained the whole thing to him, he said, those three nerves need to readjust to the whole trauma they've been put through in that area, right? And then after that there was something lymphatic that I noticed, and then there's an emotional component. There's all kinds of components, and the key though is that it's a process, and as each one presents, it can create a new reason for panic, and instead of I just started replacing the word panic for process, and say, oh, okay, there's a new thing now that's here now. This is process. And I had been forewarned that the recovery time is long on the particular kind of surgery that I had. And so it was like, yeah, process. So whenever you're looking long term at anything, just remember that anytime you can replace panic with process, that takes you into the present moment, which is where we want to be for these kinds of things.
I like that. I'm going to adopt that today. I refer to that as my, oh no, there's something else wrong part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had a couple of things that I have felt in my body in other places. So I guess the best example I can give is my shoulders, which are, they're arthritic, they're not great. And I had to use a walker for the first week. And if you bear down on that walker too hard, you feel it in your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want any more trouble with my shoulders. So I took any pain in another body part as kind of like a telegram. Of, hey, lady, pay attention to me now, because there may be something you can do. And I adjusted. If I was in mid-walk, I stood up straighter. I lightened up my grip on the walker.
Mm-hmm.
I took those messages from those other parts of my body really seriously.
Yeah.
To say, there's something that's needed here. And even the same thing with a cane. And I will tell you that my happiest day was going out for a walk 2.5 weeks out from hip replacement surgery and walking a mile without a cane or a walker.
Wow. And those are great focusing moments too, because you can be with those parts in you that are feeling good. And then as you start to feel good, that feel good thing, like letting those good feelings be there, and to let yourself be filled with that sense of maybe accomplishment, of feeling better, all of that then turns back, I think, to the organism and informs the whole sort of emotional structure, informs very often when I'm coming out of a focusing session, I'm inviting the new information to integrate into every cell of my being, into every molecule, into every last atom of me, and that all of that wisdom sort of can permeate like the whole organism, And so, but it's important to also do that with good things. When good things happen, you want them to be sort of absorbed into the wholeness of you, like not just that part of you that feels good for a moment when you've had an accomplishment or something. So that's also a nice sort of road to healing thing.
Absolutely. I noticed on that 1 mile walk, the focusing moments, besides the ones that were kind of the, fist pump, I did it.
Yeah.
Were the ones, can I do it?
Mm-hmm.
Am I pushing this too far?
Mm-hmm.
The wonderful thing about the body scan that we do in the first minutes of a focusing session is doing that on the fly.
Yeah.
Or the walk, so to speak, to just stop and say, how is everything? Are my feet okay? Are my knees okay? Are my hips okay? Is my back okay? Is my neck okay? How am I walking? Am I stooped over, or am I upright as I
Right,
should be?
right.
And really taking inventory in that way. So I like the idea of installing the good stuff at a cellular level and being able to really do it with every body part.
Yeah, yeah.
Good stuff.
So just to, we're sort of coming up on our time together today, but just as an overall, like if now that you've sort of been through a good chunk of this process, how would you advise someone to use focusing in a lead up or in a post operative process? What would your number one thing be?
Well, pre-surgical, I would say, can you make a short list, maybe just 3 things that are your biggest concerns about this? Because if you're thinking about them now, pre-surgery, they come under the heading of things I'm worried about. And if I'm worried about them, do I need to do something about them? And that's rich fodder for focusing. You asked me for only one thing, but I'm going to cheat and give 2 more.
Okay.
I think that thing we talked about, the gratitude, is crucial. And I don't know if anybody's written it up anywhere or not. If they haven't, maybe we should. That gratitude with focusing is powerful as a tool. Pre-surgically, I was kind of lucky in that the American Thanksgiving holiday was coming during my recovery, and so I kind of had gratitude on my mind, and I spent a lot of time being grateful in a focusing way for everything that I was being given in order to go through this. Post-surgically, the number one thing is to be able to listen to your body in this very targeted way. To be checking in regularly with body parts, how, whatever your surgery happens to be. In your case, your jaw. In my case, my hip. Other people, knees, or whatever it is that's being operated on. And, one of the things that you and I are very fortunate in our conversation today that we didn't have to deal with, nothing in our surgery was indicative of disease that we have to deal with in the aftermath, that there's going to be ongoing treatment for. I want to say to those people, that's a whole more than what we talk about that deserves special attention, because there's the part that may not feel so hopeful as we have felt today, talking about our processes. And those are the more than one thing I would say.
Yeah. I would definitely echo exactly what you're saying about being with that one, when you're going in for something like what I experienced, which was a tooth extraction, what you experienced, which was a hip replacement, that there's something there that you can thank, and there's something you can be grateful for, even in the yuckiness of having to go through something like this. In the post side of things, I think it sort of emerged out of this conversation, and probably the first time I've articulated is that process will win over panic, and so understanding that you're in a process is sometimes the very, very basic way of becoming present to whatever it is you're going through. And so being attentive to understanding that everything is in process, and that what it feels like in this moment may not, it might feel like forever for now, but it's not forever.
That's right. Being in process, I realized before we close that there is something that I must do. I'm not only a surgical patient, but I'm a parent. And I gave a shout out to son number 2 in this podcast, but I must give one to son number 1, who accompanied me through this surgical process. Mm-hmm. And so in the department of things I am grateful for, and he really was a big piece of my gratitude going into this, is that my number 1 son was my advocate in the hospital for the first time. Mm-hmm. I had the experience of having my child instead of an adult friend or other relative. Mm-hmm. My almost 30-year-old son was my advocate, and then my other son stayed home with me, and I was able to bask in gratitude the whole time.
Yeah.
Because of that.
I want to congratulate you on one thing, and that is using this process to become your own advocate, to empower yourself to figure out and to confront and understand all the needs, feelings, wants, desires for a process that is not something people love to have to face. But the way you've approached this and your generosity of spirit and the generous way in which you've agreed to share this with me and hopefully with the people listening can maybe shed some light the next time somebody has to go into some difficult process, something that involves the physical body or anything. And hopefully that informs how they approach the situation. But my hat's off to you, and I want to thank you warmly, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking this time.
You know, people post-surgery cry easily, David. You almost made me cry. Thank you very much. If I can say any word that helps another person ease their situation, I am content. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Focusing Way podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm your host, David Battistella. Please visit our website at thefocusingway.com.